I've been mentioning the word middleware ever since we started talking about the Express framework. And theoretically, you know by now that middleware is a function that hooks into the request and response streams to process or pre-process data. But did you know that you wrote your first middleware function in the last lecture? A middleware function looks like this. Now, where have we seen this before? I'm sure you'll recall that this is exactly what our route handler functions look like. Route handler functions also plug into the request and response streams, and that is precisely what we do in a middleware function. The only difference here is that we can write a middleware function for one or more routes at the same time. So let me show you how to write a simple middleware function. We're back in our Express application that we created last time. Let me quickly add an extra line between our module imports and the app.set statement, just to make it more readable. Now let's write a function called hello middleware like so. Inside this function, I'll access the request object and I'll attach a new key called hello. And we'll set it to Adele singing her song. You get the idea. Now, once the middleware function inserts this variable in the request object, we will have to call next like so to move the control to the next possible middleware that might be present. Even if you do not have any more middleware functions, you have to call the next method to ensure Express continues to process the route handler stack and so forth. This is really powerful because you can hold control in a middleware and ensure you move ahead only and only when suitable logic dictates so. When next is called, control passes on to the next given middleware function. It is also important to note here that middleware functions must be declared and available before you can use them. Hence, the position of this middleware before the route handlers in this example. Okay, I've created my middleware function and this will just sit here and do nothing. This is because a middleware is like a plugin. You have to plug it in when you have to make it work. In Express, this means that we'll have to plug this middleware in to the request and response streams and place it in the middleware stack. This is done by using the app.use method like so. Here, I'm plugging in the middleware function into the request and response streams before the route handlers come into effect. This way, the req.hello key should be available inside my route handlers. Let's try that out. So I'll go into my dashboard route and we'll just attempt to render out the contents of req.hello into the string that we are already sending back to the user. And as you can see in the browser, when we call the dashboard route, the route handler is able to fetch the contents of the req.hello variable and send it back in the response. Likewise, let's use a console.log in our root route and once again, when this route is accessed, the console.log is able to print out the contents of the req.hello variable. Now, we can also bind middleware to specific routes. So, for instance, if we add the root route here like so, you'll see that our app behaves exactly as it did before. That is because when you mention a route when using the app.use statement to integrate in a middleware function, the given function is put into use for all routes originating at the given route. What this means is that if I type out the root route, all routes originating here, including the dashboard route, will see the effect of this middleware function. So mentioning the root route is optional because this essentially means you're hooking up the middleware to all routes on this application instance. Now, if let's say instead of the root route, I hook up the middleware to the dashboard route like so, you'll see that it is indeed available to the dashboard route. However, when we access the root route, it throws up an undefined because now this middleware will only work for routes originating from /dashboard and onwards. So possible routes like /dashboard /user info /dashboard /change password can all benefit from this middleware function. So this is how a middleware function works in a nutshell. Later in this section, we'll implement a custom middleware function that helps keep some of our routes protected from unauthorized users or users who are not logged into our app.